You know who's not having a lot of fun right now, Martin?
Who's that?
Martin Scorsese.
Oh no, what?
Well, you know, he just wanted to make sure that people understood where he was coming from in regards to his Marvel comments. He came out and said that, you know what? Look, it's a new type of cinema. You know, it's not something that I'm used to. Mm-hmm. And, you know, for those that like it, they like it. I just don't like it. And it's like, oh, okay, that seemed kind of reasonable.
Yeah.
But then he just released an article recently. just say, okay, listen, I'm going to clarify myself even more. Not only are Marvel films not cinema, but fuck you guys who think they are. Okay. Pretty much, or at least in not so many words.
I don't see him saying that. I feel like those aren't direct quotes.
I'm paraphrasing. That's what we do in this industry. You know, we can't read out the entire thing. We got to create some drama.
We can't take things verbatim.
No,
we have to run them through a filter.
No, exactly. That's exactly
the biggest reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm doing right now
from the mob.
But here's the thing: I can actually go and see what he wrote because he did a New York Times piece.
Okay,
you know, being very, very official, which I think is kind of cool. But yeah, the two particular quotes I found very interesting were picked out among many other entertainment venues. Mm-hmm. And this one was picked up by Slash Film. Thank you, Slash Film, for providing this for us. And this is one of the quotes. He said, "Many elements that define cinema as I know it are there in Marvel Pictures. What's not there is revelation, mystery, or genuine emotional danger. Nothing is at risk. The pictures are made to satisfy a specific set of demands, and they are designed as variations on a finite number of themes." Now, what he's saying is that they don't have the same attributes that a lot of films do have. Mm. You know, he's saying that only particular themes are used and they're repeated often. Now, look, I mean, I think we can, that is a good critique of Marvel movies, and I think a lot of superhero films in general is that they are similar, particularly when it comes to like doing an origin story or something like that. But I think over time, comic book films have started to evolve, and I think what kind of the MCU has been able to build over the past 10 years are a lot of character arcs, a lot of things that have changed these characters over time, where it's like Thor is not the Thor that we know from Thor 1 at this point.
Sure.
I mean, the fact to say that different themes weren't used in his films and in the Avengers movies, and seeing how he's grown as a character, I think that's just plainly false. And I think it kind of goes again to someone, Scorsese, who, look, he's a brilliant filmmaker. Mm-hmm. He's created some of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
But I just think that he still has this mindset that because of what my position is, because of the movies I've been able to make over the multiple decades, that I can define film. And I think he's still placing on that. It's not just his opinion now. He says, like, they're just not for me. But he's also saying, but they're still not cinema, which I still think is frustrating.
From that quote you read, he said, "to me."
Mm-hmm.
Not in general, he said, "to me."
I think he's having it both ways, where he's saying it to me, but then he's still saying, as a matter of factly, that it still doesn't have these things in it that define it as cinema.
If there's something people like and you say, I don't like that, the question is going to be, well, why not? And you have to then go into detail as to what works for you and what does not.
Okay.
Now, what you're saying over time this has happened.
Yeah.
So now, if you showed someone Thor: The Dark World.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah.
Right. You said, no, man, these movies are good now. And what they got to see was Thor: The Dark World. And then you said, okay, but if you watch the next one and these other movies, it gets better here.
Yeah.
Could you understand if they went, I'm going to pass?
I would say that if you're judging an entire genre of film, of cinema on one movie, I think that's kind of arrogant. I think that if I saw one bad drama, I don't think to say it's like, well, that means all dramas are bad. Okay. I think that's kind of frustrating. The same thing with like horror things, and I think that's what he's saying with a lot of these movies. He's seen some of these films, and it's his right to say it's like the ones I see I don't particularly care for. I think they're.
Is it his right? Because the way everybody's been going on picking this up and talking about it over and over and getting angry, I feel like people don't think it's his right.
I'm not even, look, there are people that get angry about it. I'm not even angry about it.
Mm-hmm.
My whole thing is that I just don't like the idea of someone who's is trying to define something as this one particular thing. Trying to find this is a definition of film or cinema, and this other thing is not. That's the thing. It's the spreading of ignorance is what I'm most concerned about. And it's like he can not like these movies. That's totally fine. Mm-hmm. He's kind of waffled between that right now, saying it's like, well, I don't like them, but then they're also not cinema. And it's like, okay, well, listen, no one has an issue with you not liking these movies. I certainly don't. I think that's totally fine. But again, he's still sticking to that other point, which I think has just kind of exacerbated the situation, got other filmmakers involved, and just kind of, led to the people to state, like, look, you may not like these movies or any genre of film, but you cannot suddenly say, you can't define what cinema is. I think that's the issue. You can't place your own definition on it, because I think then you get into a lot of problems, and then you get into say like what is or what is not art.
Right, but what gives him the right to define cinema?
I don't think he has the right to define cinema.
And I don't think he thinks he has the right to define it. Not globally.
Right.
But he can't speak for himself.
No, absolutely.
Saying that in his mind, this is not cinema. Mm-hmm. Because what he's looking to achieve is something better than what he's done. And what most of what he's done is what I think could be considered better than superhero movies.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen Silence, so it's not that great.
And I've seen
Shutter
Thor:
Island.
The Dark World.
Yeah, okay, all right, well, fair enough.
Hey, okay, which superhero movie is as good as Goodfellas?
I mean, to put me on the spot like that, then it's a little difficult.
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But hey, if you hammer it down, it's going to come back to like, well, that's your opinion. Okay,
right.
Fine.
Which I think is totally fine, by the way.
Yeah, it's easy to talk off the cuff and say like, that's not this. Even though you don't say, in my opinion, it's kind of what you mean.
Yeah.
And so for somebody to take that and just run with it is irresponsible. Mm-hmm. And they say like, are you saying that to you? It's like, yeah, to me, that's not cinema. Because I would think from his point of view, hey, Ingmar Bergman, that's cinema. That's the kind of thing that I aspire to and I could never quite reach, but I keep trying. Mm-hmm. These guys are nowhere. That's not even in the realm. What they're doing, because I think what you read pretty much defines what he's saying. How, look, you can't say he doesn't know anything about him, because those things he named, it's like, yeah, for the most part, he's right. Now, there are definitely some exceptions.
Yeah.
And they are getting there. Mm-hmm. It's still superhero movies. It's still kind of a young genre. I mean, I know it's been going on for decades, but it's been little dribs and drabs. And now we're getting to that point where it's really starting to grow.
We're getting like several a year at this point.
Yes. It's just coming out of the larval stage where, okay, we can see what this can easily become. But from where it started, that seemed like that was never going to happen. Mm-hmm. So it's possibly too early to judge. It's equally too early to think, oh, these are only going to get better. As much as they could get better, they could top out. We could hit a point where it's like, yeah, that's as good as they can get.
Right.
Because the more with superheroes, the more realistic you get, the more it starts to fall apart.
Yeah.
So there's you gotta try different angles on it, and people are still doing that. Mm-hmm. Some of it works, some of it not. We've been waiting for that superhero movie that's a horror movie, and we thought New Mutants was going to be it.
Sure.
And we thought Brightburn was going to be it. So that's still waiting.
Brightburn was not it.
No, Brightburn was not it. Brightburn was not it. But you can see how eventually somebody will crack that code. It doesn't seem like it's that difficult.
Sure.
But you look at zombie flicks. That's because superhero films. That's not really I think of that more like a semi-genre, a subgenre. Yeah, just like zombie films.
Right.
And yes, zombie films, they're doing way more than everybody thought. Mm-hmm. But we still haven't had that amazing Oscar-winning zombie film, have we?
I mean, you can argue Night of the Living Dead at the time is probably, again, not considered cinema, but I mean the themes it was playing with, the performances in it, like what it was, trying to what it was saying, what it was blatantly saying, is incredible, and the reason why that film, it stands up to this day. I mean, even again, people aren't watching it for the zombie makeup of the effect. No, they're watching it for the story and its commentary on society at that time.
Well, let's be real here. People watched it for the horror and the effects.
Sure.
And it happened to also deliver a message.
Right.
And have some good or decent to good acting in it.
Right.
That happened to be a bonus, but it's not why people came to see it. And yeah, it's better than most of whatever grindhouse flicks were coming out at that time.
Right.
I still think that if you saw what the Oscar contenders were for that year, it wouldn't hold a candle to those.
Right. Okay. No, I understand that. I understand your perspective in terms of that. Now, Martin Scorsese did have another quote that was pretty much in regards to just the what he sees as like theaters and how they've shaped and changed in order to accommodate a lot of these types of movies. And we'll just read this one quote and then we'll move on in a second. But he said, the most ominous change has happened stealthily. And on the cover of Night, the gradual but steady elimination of risk. Many films today are perfect products manufactured for immediate consumption. Many of them are well made by teams of talented individuals. All the same, they lack something essential to cinema, a unifying vision of an individual artist, because, of course, the individual artist is the riskiest factor of them all. So now that's more of a criticism of, I think, just the film industry and how they're
itself.
Typically they'll want to make a big budget superhero film rather than something that's smaller or more intimate.
Sure.
And I think that's a legitimate criticism. I understand that. But again, when it comes down to like those films, those big budget superhero films or sci-fi pictures or action movies, those are still cinema. Those are still they're worthy of that nomenclature attributed to them. And I guess we're kind of talking around circles in regards to this, and we have different perspectives on it. But again, my overall concern is this continue, because this is probably going to keep going, whether it's going to be him or it's going to be another filmmaker happening over time. But it's just I always worry when we have a bunch of supposed experts or people that feel like because of their status that they get to define what is or what is. And in this case, he says cinema, what is art? And that's the issue I have with this a lot of the times.
Okay. So do you think all art is equal?
That's a good question. It's not something that's like, I have different interests when it comes to art, but I would never say like one is, greater than the other. It's that kind of thing. Really, I think it depends on the individual and what they like. I would never say, okay, for instance, like I'm not a big music guy. Yeah. I'm not going to say that, despite me not really particularly caring for music or anything, or types of music, doesn't mean that I think they're any less worthy than films or comics or books or anything like that. It's just not for me. But I would never say they're not art. Like that, I think that's a big difference of what, like I'm personally saying in regards to a specific media or form of entertainment.
Do you think there's a difference between art and high art?
How would you define that? Like that would be the question.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said something to this effect. It's comparing, say, the painting of The Last Supper or the Sistine Chapel to the painting of dogs playing poker.
Okay. Well, for someone, the dogs playing poker means more to them than something from the Sistine Chapel. Again, it's always in the eye of the beholder.
See how one might be labeled high art,
sure,
and the other, it's not. The dog playing poker isn't art,
right?
And hey, I like that painting.
Yeah,
I see it. It makes me smile.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it's adorable.
Yes, it's adorable. But I do see the difference between high art and art.
Okay,
and when you talk about nomenclature, okay, maybe that's somebody might say, well, this is film and this is cinema. And another person might say, well, they're all the same thing. If you look up in a dictionary, they're all the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
But to someone, they could go like, well, this is how I in my head distinguish these two. Cinema is high art and everything else is art.
Right.
But it's not this.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Does that make sense to you?
Fair enough, but I still don't like it. I don't like it. Agree to disagree, sir.